"Take me, I'll be your blanket," said the alien fugitive girl. He didn't mind the loneliness that came with it, especially not now, after his discharge from the military. He had grown used to the quiet streets of the small town, where nobody knew him as anything more than the guy who worked the night shift at the local gas station. The rain started to fall harder, each drop hitting the pavement with a steady rhythm. Daniel pulled his jacket tighter, a futile attempt to ward off the chill. His boots splashed through puddles as he walked down the alley that led to his apartment. He'd nearly reached the end when he heard something, soft, almost inaudible like a whisper. He paused, scanning the shadows. The alley was empty, save for the occasional stray cat or discarded cardboard box, but something felt off. That feeling that told him there was more to the world than what was visible on the surface. It wasn't the first time it had crept into his mind, but tonight it seemed stronger, more urgent. He took a cautious step forward, his military instincts kicking in. His hand went to the holster at his side. No one ever bothered him here, but something about the night felt wrong. Another sound, this time, a soft groan. He froze. It was coming from behind an old, rusted dumpster near the edge of the alley. Slowly he approached, his steps silent, eyes narrowed. As he rounded the corner, he saw her. A girl, no older than 16 or 17, huddled against the wall, her knees drawn up to her chest. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, with faint glowing patterns that looked like tattoos. Her clothes were torn and dirty, but it was the eyes that caught Daniel's attention. They were a deep shade of violet, almost unnatural in their intensity. There was something strange about her, something otherworldly. She looked like she didn't belong here on Earth or anywhere he had ever seen before. "Hey, are you all right?" Daniel called out, his voice softer than he intended. He took a cautious step toward her. The girl flinched, her wide eyes darting to him in fear. She scrambled back against the wall, her breath shallow and quick. "Please, help me," she whispered, her voice weak but urgent. "Easy now," Daniel said, holding up his hands in a gesture of calm. "I'm not going to hurt you. What happened to you?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, her gaze flickered around the alley as if expecting someone to appear. Her lips parted and her voice trembled. "They're coming for me. They'll find me. They always do." Daniel's brow furrowed. "Who's coming for you?" Her hand reached out, and for a moment he thought she might touch him, but she hesitated as if unsure of whether it was safe. I'm not supposed to be here," she said, her voice barely audible. Daniel didn't know what to make of her words. A runaway? Maybe. But something about her didn't fit the usual story. People didn't just disappear in the middle of a city like this. Not without a reason. He took another step toward her, his heart pounding with a mix of caution and curiosity. "You're not from around here, are you?" Her eyes flickered to his, and for the briefest moment he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. It was a look of pure desperation, mingled with something else, a sense of hopelessness but also a strange sense of familiarity. The girl finally spoke again, this time her voice barely more than a whisper. "Take me. I'll be your blanket." Daniel blinked, unsure he heard her correctly. "What?" Her face twisted in a strange mixture of pain and fear, but she pressed on, her words urgent. "Take me, please. I'll be your blanket. I'll keep you warm, I promise. Just protect me." He felt a wave of confusion sweep over him. A blanket? What did she mean by that? And why was she asking for protection in exchange for something so odd? "Look, I don't know what you're talking about," Daniel said, his voice firm. "But I'm not leaving you here. You're in trouble and I'm gonna help you." The girl's eyes widened, tears welling up in her strange violet eyes. She reached out for him once more, but this time her hand was trembling. "Please, you don't understand. They'll kill me. They want me back." Daniel paused, his mind racing. "Who will kill you? Who's after you?" She shuddered, visibly flinching at the question. Her gaze darted around again, but there was no one else, just them in the alley. The soft rain continued to fall around them, the only sound the steady rhythm of water against concrete. "I'm not from here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not from Earth. They'll find me." Daniel's chest tightened at the strange words. This wasn't just some runaway girl, this was something different. But what could he do? Leave her here to die in the rain or take her with him? He made a decision. "All right," he said finally, the words heavy in the still night air. "I'll take you with me. But you need to explain everything once we're safe." The girl nodded, her face flooding with relief. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I promise, you won't regret it." With one last glance around the alley, Daniel knelt beside her, offering a hand. She hesitated for a moment, her eyes locking with his, before she reached out and took it. Captain Daniel Rivers couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a sharp turn into something he didn't understand. The girl, who had only moments ago been a trembling mess in the alley, now walked beside him, her feet barely making a sound as they crossed the wet pavement. He had no idea what he was getting into by agreeing to help her. The world felt heavy, as though he just stepped into a reality far bigger than his small corner of it. A reality where aliens were real. He glanced at the girl, her strange violet eyes flicking back at him with a mix of gratitude and wariness. "My name's Zara," she had said quietly when he introduced himself earlier. It was a name that sounded almost too soft for someone who was hiding from something or someone so dangerous. She hadn't shared much else yet, only that she wasn't from Earth. That she was running from a pursuit that had started on her home planet. She'd been quiet during the walk to his apartment, her eyes never staying still. It was as if she was constantly watching for danger, even though no one else was around. Daniel led her into his small, modest living space. It was nothing special, just a couch, a couple of chairs, a television, and a table. It wasn't a home, just a place to sleep after long, monotonous shifts at the gas station. But it was safe, and for the moment, that was all that mattered. He locked the door behind them, the sound of the latch clicking into place like a reminder of the danger that was still out there. Zara sank onto the couch as soon as they entered, her body looking drained and fragile. Her eyes fluttered shut for a moment before she looked at him again. "Thank you for helping me," she said softly. Her voice was strange, melodic even, but the words were laced with something deeper, something darker. "I didn't do it for free," Daniel said, trying to keep his tone light, but there was a hint of seriousness in it that he couldn't mask. "You said you'd be my blanket." "What exactly does that mean?" Zara shifted uncomfortably. She seemed to be debating whether or not to explain. After a long moment she spoke again, her voice quieter than before. "It's a way of showing gratitude and protection. Where I'm from, we have ways of connecting with each other, physically, emotionally. My people, my species, we have a gift, and sometimes we share that gift with others." Daniel raised an eyebrow, skeptical. He had seen enough strange things during his military career to keep an open mind, but the words still sounded impossible. "Go on," he encouraged. She hesitated, then took a deep breath as if gathering strength. "When I said I'd be your blanket, it means that I can make you feel warmth, not just physically but also emotionally. I can help you forget pain, fear, the things that haunt you. It's like a shield, a protection against the darkness." Daniel didn't know how to react. He didn't believe in magic, and yet here she was, telling him she had the ability to do something beyond what he could even comprehend. But there was something in her eyes that made him pause. It wasn't arrogance or boastfulness. It was vulnerability. "How does it work?" he asked, trying to sound more curious than confused. Zara's expression softened and she lifted her hand, palm facing him. There was a faint glow beneath her skin, pulsing like the rhythm of a heartbeat. "It's not always easy to explain. It's a part of me. I can transfer some of my energy to you, make you feel less alone." Daniel stared at her hand, a strange warmth filling the room. He wasn't sure if it was her or his imagination, but something was definitely happening. She lowered her hand and glanced away, her face tight with emotion. I can't explain it all now, but what I can tell you is that I don't want to be alone anymore. I'm running from something, someone. The Empire. They're chasing me. They won't stop until they find me." His stomach tightened. "The Empire," he repeated. He didn't know much about galactic politics or alien conflicts, but he knew enough to understand that something this big couldn't end well. Zara nodded, her gaze distant. "I was part of a group that wanted to change things. We wanted to end the war, free the people who are suffering. But the Empire, they're too powerful. They didn't like that. So they sent hunters after me, to stop me from ever speaking again. They want to silence us all." Daniel leaned against the kitchen counter, his mind racing. "And these hunters, they're not human, are they?" Zara's eyes flicked to him, her expression guarded. "No, they're like me, but they're loyal to the Empire. They're trained to kill, to capture us, bring us back alive. Or not." He swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling in his chest. This wasn't just a case of helping a runaway girl. This was something much larger, something that could tear his world apart if he wasn't careful. "But you said you'd be my blanket," Daniel said, trying to focus on the one thing he still didn't understand. "What's the catch? Why help me?" Zara's lips trembled slightly. I need your protection. You don't understand how dangerous they are. The hunters, they don't care about anything except getting their target. They'll stop at nothing to get me back. And when they do, they won't stop with just me. They'll kill anyone who gets in their way, even you." She lowered her gaze, her voice barely audible. "I don't want to drag you into this, but if you don't help me, I don't know how long I can keep running." Daniel's heart thudded in his chest. He had a choice. He could turn her in, hand her over to the authorities, and walk away. He could pretend he never saw her, go back to his quiet, safe life. But the way she looked at him, the way she trusted him without asking for anything more than his protection, it made the decision feel impossible. He knew that if he turned his back on her now, he'd never be able to live with himself. He took a deep breath. "All right, Zara, you're not alone anymore, but we need to figure out a plan. The hunters won't stop, and neither will the Empire. I'm not going to let them get to you." A flash of something flickered in her eyes, relief, maybe even gratitude. But it was fleeting, as if the weight of the danger still pressed down on her. "Thank you," she whispered. "I won't let you regret this." But even as the words left her lips, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, and he was about to be pulled into something far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. The days that followed felt like a blur. Daniel did his best to keep life normal, to make Zara feel safe, but the constant pressure of their situation hung over everything. Every sound, every shadow, every slight movement outside his small apartment seemed to hold a threat. And Zara, she was always on edge. Her violet eyes darted nervously whenever someone walked by, her breath shallow whenever the wind howled outside. The weight of her past, the constant fear of being hunted, was a thing Daniel could feel in the air. Zara had stayed quiet about her people, about her homeworld, only giving him fragments of information when she was sure she could trust him. She spoke little of the Empire, only that it was vast and ruthless. They controlled everything and everyone, suppressing any signs of rebellion with deadly force. She was a part of that rebellion, or at least she had been, until her group had been destroyed, leaving her as one of the last survivors. Now she was on the run, trying to survive long enough to make it to a rumored safe haven, a place where others like her might still be hiding. Despite her fear, Daniel noticed changes in her. As the days wore on, Zara seemed to be recovering. She wasn't as weak as she had been when he found her in the alley. She ate more, and her body no longer trembled at the slightest noise. There was even a small spark of hope in her eyes when she spoke of the future. She wasn't just a fugitive anymore. She was a survivor, someone who still believed she could make a difference. But hope was a fragile thing, and Daniel knew it wouldn't last forever. It was late one evening, just as Daniel was returning from a quick errand, when everything changed. He opened the door to his apartment and stepped inside, expecting to see Zara sitting on the couch, watching the old television they had set up. Instead, the room was silent. He froze, his hand still on the door handle. Something was wrong. "Zara," he called out softly, stepping into the dimly lit room. His gaze swept over the small apartment, empty. The couch was empty, her jacket and shoes were gone. Panic started to build in his chest. He rushed toward the bedroom, but before he could reach the door, a voice came from behind him. "You shouldn't have gotten involved, Daniel." He spun around to see a man standing in the doorway, tall, well-built, and with an air of authority that Daniel instinctively disliked. The man's uniform was crisp, dark, and military, but there was something about the way he carried himself that didn't sit right. He looked like someone who'd seen war, but not the kind Daniel had fought in. This man had a colder, more calculating demeanor. "Who are you?" Daniel demanded, instinctively reaching for the gun at his side, though he didn't draw it yet. He had a bad feeling about this. The man smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "Colonel Soren," he replied, his voice smooth and measured. "You don't need to worry about her anymore. Zara, she's coming with me." Daniel's stomach churned. "What do you mean, coming with you?" he asked, his voice low. "She's not going anywhere." Soren's smile faltered for just a second before it returned. "You don't understand, do you? She's not just some lost refugee. She's a criminal, Daniel, a fugitive from a powerful empire. You've been protecting her because you don't know the full story. But I can't let you continue. It's not just a matter of safety anymore. It's a matter of national security." "National security," Daniel repeated, his mind racing. The words felt wrong, like a cover-up for something much darker. He didn't trust this man, not one bit. But he couldn't let Zara go. He couldn't let anyone take her, not after everything they'd been through. "Zara has information that could bring down the Empire," Soren continued, his voice calm and insistent. "Information that must never reach the wrong hands. I'm here to make sure she's returned to where she belongs before she causes more damage." Daniel shook his head, disbelief flooding his chest. "She's just a kid. She's not a criminal." Soren's eyes narrowed, his expression hardening. "She's more dangerous than you realize. And now so are you." His voice dropped, taking on a darker tone. "If you're not going to cooperate, we can do this the hard way." Before Daniel could react, there was a sudden movement in the corner of the room. He whipped his head around, but his body froze as he saw Zara standing there, her eyes wide and filled with terror. Her violet gaze flicked from Soren to Daniel, and then back to the door. "You don't have to do this," Daniel said, stepping forward. "You don't have to go with him, Zara." But Zara's body was trembling. She was caught in the same fight-or-flight instinct that had been haunting her since the moment she'd set foot on Earth. She had to make a choice: run or stay and risk Daniel's life. She was the target. She was the one who needed to be saved. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," Soren said, taking a step toward Zara, his hand outstretched like a predator going in for the kill. Zara's lip trembled, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, Daniel. I didn't want you to be a part of this." And then, in a flash of movement, Zara darted toward the door, but Soren was faster. He lunged forward, grabbing her arm in a vice-like grip. The sound of her gasp echoed through the room, but before Daniel could react, something unexpected happened. Zara's skin glowed brighter, and Daniel felt a rush of warmth fill the room. It wasn't just physical warmth. It was like something had shifted inside him, like the air itself was charged with energy. His vision blurred for a split second, and when it cleared, he saw Zara struggling against Soren's grip. But her eyes were locked on Daniel's, and he could see the pain there, the regret. She didn't want this. She didn't want to drag him into it. "Let her go," Daniel shouted, his voice raw with emotion. Soren, unfazed, tightened his hold. "She's not going anywhere, Rivers. This is bigger than you, bigger than her. You don't understand the consequences." But Daniel didn't care about consequences anymore. All he cared about was Zara. He reached for his gun, his heart pounding in his chest, but before he could draw it, the door burst open. More figures stepped into the apartment, all of them wearing the same cold expression as Sauron. They were hunters, alien, human, or both. It didn't matter. They were here for one thing, Zara. And now it was war. The room was chaos. Daniel's heart raced as he stared at the hunters who now surrounded him, their cold eyes scanning the apartment with terrifying efficiency. Sauron's grip on Zara tightened, and her body stiffened as if preparing for a fight she knew she couldn't win. The door had barely closed when Daniel's instincts kicked in. He couldn't let this happen, not to Zara and not to himself. The stakes had never been so high. She had trusted him. Now it was his turn to prove he was worthy of that trust. "Move away from her," Daniel shouted, his hand hovering near his gun. But he didn't draw it yet. The hunters would be quick, and the last thing he wanted was a bloodbath in his apartment. But as he looked around at the alien faces, each of them hardened by years of hunting fugitives, he realized there was no other choice. Sauron raised an eyebrow, looking almost amused. "You think you can stop this? You're in over your head, Daniel. You have no idea what you're dealing with." Zara's eyes flicked to Daniel, full of silent apology. Her lips barely moved as she whispered, "It's not worth it. Let them take me." "No," Daniel's voice cracked, filled with both determination and desperation. "You're not going anywhere." Before he could act, one of the hunters stepped forward, a tall figure with a sleek, dark visor covering most of his face. The figure's voice was cold, mechanical, and it sent a chill down Daniel's spine. "Step aside, human," the hunter commanded, his accent unfamiliar, even alien. "We've been ordered to bring her in. Do not make this harder than it needs to be." Daniel's hand hovered closer to his sidearm, his mind racing. He had never been in a situation like this before. His military training told him to fight to defend himself, but he knew the odds were slim. These weren't ordinary men and women. They weren't human. They were hunters trained to track, capture, and kill. And now they had Zara in their grip. For a moment, everything slowed down. Daniel's mind flashed to his time in the military, his training, the battles, the sacrifices. He had always believed in protecting the innocent, in doing the right thing. Zara was innocent. He couldn't let her be taken. "I said no," Daniel repeated, his voice more solid this time. "She's not going with you, you're not taking her." Sauron's eyes darkened. "You don't understand, the Empire doesn't forgive. If we leave here empty-handed, they'll wipe you both out. You don't have a choice, Daniel, you never did." Daniel stepped closer to Zara, ignoring the hunter's advancing movements. He could feel the heat from Zara's body, a strange warmth that seemed to pulse from her skin. Her energy, her gift, whatever it was somehow radiating toward him. He wasn't sure what it meant, but he knew one thing for certain. She needed him, and he needed to protect her. In that moment, something clicked inside him. He wasn't going to let fear stop him. He wasn't going to let Sauron or anyone else tell him what to do. "You're wrong," Daniel said, his voice steady. "You think you control this. You think you control her. You're not the ones with power here." Zara's eyes widened as she looked at Daniel, her expression torn between confusion and understanding. It was then that the warmth from her grew stronger. For a brief second, Daniel felt something that wasn't just physical, it was a connection, a bond that tied him to Zara in a way he couldn't explain. He knew she was offering him something, a way to fight back. Without thinking, Daniel lunged forward, grabbing his gun. His training kicked in, and in one fluid motion he aimed the weapon at Sauron's chest. The other hunters hesitated, momentarily thrown off guard. But the moment didn't last long. "Don't do it," Sauron warned, his voice dangerously calm. "You'll regret it." "I already do," Daniel muttered, "but I'm not letting you hurt her." Before anyone could make a move, the room seemed to vibrate with an intense, pulsing energy. Zara gasped, her body shuddering as if she were tapping into something deep inside her. She reached out toward Daniel, her hand trembling as she placed it on his arm. In that instant, a wave of warmth and power surged through him, like a rush of adrenaline flooding his veins. It wasn't just physical, It was as though Zara's energy was flowing into him, empowering him. Soren's face twisted in surprise as he took a step back, his hand instinctively going to his side. "What is this?" he muttered. Zara's voice was barely above a whisper, but the intensity of it filled the room. "This is who I am. This is who we are. I'm not just some fugitive. I'm not just a criminal. I'm a leader, and I've fought for my people. I will not let you take me, and I will not let you destroy him." The hunters exchanged confused glances, unsure of how to react. Zara's power, whatever it was clearly not something they had anticipated. The atmosphere in the room shifted. The tension was palpable, but it wasn't just about fighting anymore. It was about survival, about freedom. Daniel could feel the energy coursing through him, an unspoken promise that he wasn't alone. Zara's power was now a part of him, a force that drove him forward. And in that moment, he knew he had to act, not just for her, but for himself, for the future they could build, for the hope that was still alive inside of them. He took a deep breath and then fired, not at Soren, but at the wall beside him. The gunshot echoed through the apartment, loud and deafening. The blast sent the hunters reeling, their attention distracted for just long enough. "Go," Daniel shouted to Zara, his voice urgent. "Run, now." Without hesitating, Zara bolted for the door, her feet barely touching the ground as she darted past the hunters. Daniel followed, his gun aimed and ready. He fired another shot, this time hitting the ceiling, and the explosion of dust and debris caused the hunters to stumble. It bought them the time they needed. They ran. The apartment building was quiet now, the soft sounds of their footsteps echoing as they moved through the hallways. They didn't stop to look back, didn't stop to wonder if they were being followed. They just ran, knowing that whatever came next, they couldn't give up. Zara led the way, her energy guiding them, her power now fully awake. Daniel could feel the bond between them growing stronger with every step, as though their destinies were now intertwined. As they reached the exit, Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. The door opened to the cool night air, the streets dark and empty. But for the first time since he'd met Zara, he didn't feel afraid. He didn't feel alone. They were free, at least for now. Zara turned to him, her violet eyes filled with gratitude and determination. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet but full of conviction. "This isn't the end, but it's a beginning. We have a chance now." Daniel nodded, his resolve stronger than ever. "We'll fight together." And as they stepped into the night, the future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Daniel knew they were ready. Whatever came next, they would face it together.